All right, we'll go ahead and get started, if we could. I feel I got a quick seventh inning stretch there and ready to get going. So I'm Matt Brooks. I've been at Hope now for, I guess, about almost 10 years. Came in 2012. I've got two boys, age 10, or sorry, almost turning 12, and then 14. Yeah, they go fast. So I'm kind of in the middle of all of this stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, and so hopefully you'll find some good information about it. Just want to say real quick, a lot of the material I'm presenting tonight is actually from a foundation or a project called Safe and Secure Online here, the Center for Cyber Safety and Education. It's associated with some computer information technology certifications, and so as part of my career that I work in, I have some of these certifications, and they have these kind of programs to kind of help public outreach and stuff. So there's kind of just a little plug there. A lot of the statistics and all the data and stuff that I'm going to be talking about tonight are from the research that this group does. They have a website also that I'll mention at the end of the presentation where you can go and find more information on some of this kind of stuff. I'm going to be going through a lot of ideas tonight for you to think about and consider. Obviously, every family is different, so some of these ideas and things and tips to try may not work for you or may not work for your family, but you kind of have to, as the parent, have to take charge here and figure out what works for your family and what works for you and what your kids need. We all know our parents know their kids the best than anybody else, right? So just kind of take that as an understanding there. And then just want to kind of give an overview of what we want to talk about tonight. Really, as Pastor Powell mentioned, there's a lot of stuff out there on these online devices, right? You got the world at your fingertips. You can access any information in any language from anywhere, pretty much. And so, what I want to do tonight is really to make you aware of some of the threats that are out there, some of the things that can be out there that obviously that kids can stumble upon very easily. Then we're also going to identify, go through many topics, kind of go a little fast-paced here, unfortunately, but want to just give you some places for you to focus on, so hopefully some good, easy takeaways you can take back and use, but then also just areas where you might have not been aware of before that are out there that you may need to pay attention to in your family or the way your kids use your devices. And then certainly the main thing I want to do is make sure that you have some good tips to follow and some things to figure out. I'm going to have in the presentation, there's going to be a little tag that says idea all over the place. And those are just basically tips or guidelines or things you might want to take action on. And to save you from furiously writing everything down, I've got a handout in the back if you didn't pick up when you came in that has all those ideas. If you see an idea up here on there, it'll be on that page, so you can use that and kind of sit and listen and not have to jot everything down. So we're going to talk, just an overview there. We're going to cover the main key, and as I think you heard Pastor Powell say, is communicate. Communicate with your kids. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go through device use, chat rooms, social media, sexting. It is out there, and it is a thing. Online bullying, gaming, and then some general device security that will not only help your kids, but help you, hopefully, as well. So with that, let's jump into it. First thing I do want to say before we kind of get to some of the areas is a note about controls. I'm going to mention a lot of things that are kind of controls here. I'm a little bit of a Star Wars fan, all right. It used to be, I guess. I'll say that. So, controls are out there. They're meant to help your child follow the rules. But as Pastor Powell said, all these controls, every single one of them can be circumvented or built, gotten around. And so these are things that really they're engaged here to help your child be safe and try to not stumble upon some of the threats that I'm going to be talking about here, and hopefully keep them away, just inherently away from some of this kind of stuff. But if you have a willful child that is, looking for this stuff and trying to get around controls and actions, you're going to have to take some different, some more aggressive things, and really, as Pastor Powell said, take the devices away. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is access, right? And we're going to talk about that first up. But luckily we have a loving and all-powerful God who gives us hope in our parenting life. God is a perfect parent, and we're the child. So we look to Him for our role model on how to deal with our family and our children. Had a little passage here, Isaiah 1:18. Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, shall become like wool. So God can change the heart. He can, give you hope as a parent for your child. Maybe you have a strong-willed child. It's a challenge to maintain a discipline in the family or whatnot. But I think our biggest tool we have is God's word and prayer in the Bible to allow our great God to change the heart of our child and hopefully turn a source of temptation into a source of good and great capability we can use for God's glory as well. So, all right, let's get into the basics here. The cyber world, y'all. I saw our generation. We kind of grew up in this world, in this cyber world we call it, right? We had as Pastor Powell said, we had cell phones as young adults maybe, or after you got through college. Maybe you kind of grew up with a computer at home that was a Gateway 2000 or some like Windows 3.1 machine or something like that. And so the community was kind of maturing as we were maturing with it. We kind of had that opportunity to learn as the technology progressed. And so, and we also had that paradigm, maybe you took it from your grandparents or your parents, where it's like, generally the world, you can trust it. Trust people first. People are inherently good, right? That's obviously not what we learn the truth is, but that's kind of the pervasive kind of attitude is like, you can trust people. It's all right. You can trust them first. However, with the current generation, and I think moving forward, that paradigm is no longer. It's gone, right? Our children were born into the cyber world. Kids, you read about 1-year-olds or 2-year-olds. As soon as they can hold a screen, they're watching YouTube for hours on end a day. And they get access. They can manipulate these devices. They're set up to be very simple, easy to use, and so the kids have this kind of almost innate ability to be able to operate these devices even sometimes better than we do. I remember when we had an iPad when my oldest son was 3, and we didn't actually give it to him to watch, but every once in a while we were kind of sitting on the couch together, and he actually taught me. I never learned this, to switch apps by doing a multiple finger drag across the screen, and I was like, Henry, how'd you do that? And so I was kind of like, wow, these kids, they already know, we seem like we're already behind the power curve, right, and always struggling. But there are some tools out there to use, and hopefully that's kind of some of the stuff we're going to go through tonight. But one of the big takeaways here is to have an attitude of zero trust when it comes to online devices, iPads, computers, phones. The zero trust should be your paradigm that you use nowadays. A lot of these devices, especially if you download these free apps or you get something that's free, always take the paradigm that this is probably something nefarious going on with this app here. If it's free, that means the person that made it and provided it is expecting to get some money out of you somehow, or sell your data, or get a profit off of you in some other way that you are not aware of. And so, whenever you download a free app, they're making more money off of you than you think you're getting out of them, right? So just take that paradigm. We're going to see that multiple times as that theme's going to come up here in the information that we put out here tonight. So just keep that in mind. But have an attitude of zero trust when it comes to online devices. I'm not talking about zero trust with your children, but zero trust with these devices, that we're using here. All right. So if you have, I got 2 key takeaways here tonight. If you get nothing else out of it, is that number 1 here is that kids need to understand anything they do online is forever. They post a text, they post a picture, they play a game. You might be, maybe you're not surprised, but everything that you do online is recorded somewhere, and it is potentially stored for a very long duration. When you talk about Facebook, obviously you probably all know that they store your posts, they store your information, anything that you do on there. Google, they keep records of everything that you search. If they can get a hold of it, they save it, they store it onto a server, and then they use that to obviously feed you ads and maybe other things. And so that's the main thing you want to communicate with your kids is anything you do online, you might think it's temporary, but it's not. It'll be there. And where this becomes a problem is with some of these apps we'll talk about here shortly, where you post a picture and you think, oh, it's just on there for a little while it's on the screen. Not true. Someone can take a screen capture on their device and save that picture then as a permanent picture on their device, and then use that later on. So we'll see that. So that can be a challenge. And so, like I say, anything you do online is around forever. All right. So just a couple of statistics here. 30% of children 8 to 14 use the internet in a way they know their parents would not approve. And so that's there again. It's just be you don't necessarily have to be untrusting of your child, but just be aware. I always say trust but verify with children. So your child better than anyone else. You know whether they're trustworthy or not. Maybe they've lost your trust in the past, or maybe they've built your trust in the past. But just be aware that anybody can make a mistake or stumble on something that's could get them into a bad situation. Here's some things where on this research kids ended up doing that their parents would not approve of. So chatting with strangers, using webcams with strangers, borrowing parents' credit cards for online purchases. You hear about the kid that bought like 1,000 items off of Amazon and showed up at his parents' house all at once. And then just making poor decisions with your personal information too, putting stuff out there about where you live, what your name is, all that kind of stuff online, and just making bad decisions there, not knowing that, hey, there's people out there that use that information in nefarious ways. All right, so our second key takeaway tonight is important, and this is actually probably more important than the first one. When you're dealing with your children online, communicate early and communicate often. You want to just have a relationship with your child, and you want to be able to talk to them as they're using your devices. It's not just a one and done kind of thing, as Pastor Powell said. It's a continuous conversation, and it's not just about being negative either. Oh, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. It's about taking an interest in what your child is doing online. Maybe it's they like playing a particular game or something. Well, ask them about that game. What are you doing? How do you get so good at that game? What's everybody else doing? That kind of thing. Be interested in general, taking a general interest in what they're doing. That'll not only help them be able to have conversation with you when they run into a problem, but then that will allow them to be comfortable having that conversation with you as well. So, I grew up as a little bit of a gamer, and so one of my sons is big into Minecraft, and we play a little bit together and that kind of thing, and get to talking about what other kids are doing with it, modding, and I've used it to as an avenue for him to learn computer coding as well. So that you can turn it into a good thing. Games aren't inherently bad. You just have to as again, zero trust and making sure that that what they're doing is you talk about it with them. Why do you like this game? What is it about it that you do like? And getting back to those hard issues, as we talked about earlier. All right. Okay, some more data here. Half of children surveyed here on the internet are using the internet after 10 p.m. at night. Kids end up here. 10% of those that admitted they were using the internet were late for school the next day. 5% missed school because they were too tired to be online too late. And then 90% of kids have their phone or tablet or computer in their room, in their bedroom. So you may think, well, what's the big deal? Kids when they're by themselves at night or have this opportunity are good. That's when they're going to start thinking about doing the bad things, right? When they're undercover, when they're not being watched, when they think they have this notion of privacy in their bedrooms, that's when things happen, right? And so it might be something pretty benign from just looking at who knows what stuffed animals or something online, but it might be. But the point here is that they're putting their own health and their sleep and their school ethic, work ethic behind being online and staying up late and not being ready for the next day. So there's obviously a problem there. So let's get into device usage. Is kind of the first kind of detailed topic I want to talk about here. All right, so some ideas for you. So device usage. This is probably one of the key and most effective controls you can implement around online devices, and it's having access controls. So first off, You want to establish some rules in your household about when you are able to use devices. Maybe it's maybe you have a time constraint here. Idea here: 1 to 2 hours per day, only after school. That sounds like a lot. This is where how your family operates is what you need to tailor to your children. If they can handle 1 to 2 hours a day, okay. If not, maybe that's they're pushing the boundaries on that one. Maybe you need to drop it, or then they have access 1 day out of the week or something like that. This is where you need to tailor it to yourself. And then also as far as usage times, maybe it's a good idea to not allow your children to have a personal device. We think it's fun to give our son a new cell phone for Christmas or something like that, for instance. But then when they feel like they have the ownership of the device, then they're more willing to do something that they probably shouldn't be doing on that device, as opposed to when you have a shared device. Then you're saying, well, mom and dad are going to get on this thing too, so maybe I don't want to be doing something that I know I shouldn't be, or exposing my son to something, or my brother to something else that I'm doing, or whatever. So that's a little bit of maybe a motivation to say, I think twice before I go start clicking on things. And then prevent usage in private. We talked about not allowing any screen device of any type in the children's bedroom. Make sure when you do have the devices that they're out in public places. We talked about having at home, at my home, we've got a computer in the main living room, and the screen is facing to the room. So anybody walking by, when we're sitting and watching TV or something else, you can always see what's going on in that computer. So take that approach. Laptops are kind of challenging because I know a lot of kids have laptops at school and that kind of thing. You want to establish maybe rules that you can only use your laptop on the kitchen table and it has to be facing this direction. That kind of thing might be something to think about as well. Maybe only use devices in the family room. And then another idea here is keep devices in a central location. Maybe you have a charging station that everybody has to use. You can't plug your device into the wall in the basement. You have to plug it in up here in the living room or something like that. I know my son's terrible about managing his battery, so he's always using it when it's like 1%. Like, you're stuck next to the wall trying to plug in, keep that iPad going. And so central charging location would allow you to then to keep physical monitor over that device. And then maybe there's other ideas about, just not, or just discouraging or barring use of devices while a parent is not at home. Maybe you have older kids, you can get out and do an errand or something. Maybe you want to, just say, nope, no screens while I'm out of the house, that kind of thing. All right, let's see here. Got some more statistics for you. 37% of kids have accidentally visited sites meant for adults. And this is, again, we've talked about accident versus purposeful. This stuff is really easy to pull up accidentally online. I mean, almost every one of you have had an experience online already, trying to type something in, you fat finger it, and then all of a sudden, whoa, what is this? And then you got to get out of there. And then 20% are searching for sites on purpose, and over half follow through with the visit. So, you might have kids that are, just an example here. This is obviously kind of from the secular world here, but you might have kids that are searching for something and stumble across Google search results that are, oh, what is this? That looks interesting. When I click on something like that, or no, it's something that they shouldn't be clicking on, and they go ahead and do it anyway. So just be aware of that. All right. So how do we take care of this then? So again, take advantage of the built-in device access controls that we have. Whenever you introduce your child or your family to a new device. For instance, maybe you get, maybe the kids get a new iPad for school or something. You want to take that device first. The kids aren't the one using it and setting it up. You should be the ones using it and setting it up. You want to establish your own accounts on there. You want to establish parental controls. You want to set your own passwords and not have those passwords given to the child. You hear about all the ways around that. You can do screen video capturing and that kind of thing. I wouldn't worry about that too much. I mean, if there's a problem, you'll see it in other ways. But when you set up your device, then your child is not able to go and do purchases and download additional apps and those and you end up, you can basically escalate control. If they get a little bit of control, they can usually escalate that control to the entire device, right? Pastor Gabe talked about, factory resetting the device, and now that all of a sudden they can get into it. Additionally, there's some tools you can apply, and I know a lot of this stuff might be a little confusing to you if oh, I've got an iPhone, or I've got an Android, or I've got whatever Windows device. A lot of this stuff is either you can figure out by looking up the help manual online. Maybe there's some tutorials you can watch online. I personally don't have all the details of how you would set up parental controls on one device versus another, but usually there's enough out there online you can kind of figure it out and search with and figure it out. But I can certainly help you afterwards if you have a specific question about something. So then another good idea here is with your basic internet in your house. There's actually router if you use like Verizon or Cox or some of these other companies. There are routers that they will provide to you, or maybe you bought yourself, have an administrative control panel you can go into, and you can set rules to help with internet access issues. So you can, at my home, we have the internet shuts off at basically 9 o'clock at night. It doesn't turn back on until 6 o'clock in the morning. And that is, so no devices are getting online at all. And that's a router rule you can set up to we actually had a problem where one of my children were getting up late at night and trying to get online, and it's like, no, we're not doing that. And so you kind of help take away that temptation. It's not even a thing. Another thing, it's a little more complicated here, but using a different domain name server, DNS here. Domain name service, if you're not familiar, is basically when you type in a plain English address into your web browser, like say yahoo.com. That domain name server takes that plain English address and it turns it into a numeric IP address, which the internet then uses to get you to the right place. And so what this is when if you set up your if you have internet service at home, your domain name system is kind of default. It's maybe your internet service provider, and it's basically wide open, no problem, no restrictions or anything. What you can do is you can set your router to use a different domain name service, and there's some good ones out there. Clean Browsing DNS is one to search for. If you just search DNS content filter, that'll bring up a lot of good options for you. And what these domain name services do is they're managed, and they block a lot of the bad domains that are just inherently nefarious. You got pornography, you got malware, you got a lot of these online underground kind of forums and things. It'll just block a lot of these sites outright, so you don't have to worry about your child accidentally getting onto a website and downloading either pornography or malware or what have you. So those are always, and they're also kind of faster a lot of times than the default ones that the internet service providers give you. So that's an idea there to use as well. All right, so we're going to shift gears a little bit. That's access controls. That was, your most effective controls is like, obviously, as I said, taking ownership of the device yourself. Your child doesn't have ownership of it. You run the accounts and the passwords and those kinds of things. Now we're going to talk a little shift about chat rooms. Chat rooms are definitely pervasive out there. There's used to be, it just started out as chat room services are dedicated, like AOL Online or what have you. Now chat rooms seem to be integrated into every app and every game and every website almost, it seems like. So here's some statistics about the chat rooms. And the threat here is really that your child could meet someone online, obviously, and then they would be chatting with them, and there's been a terrible trend that children are then convinced to go do things that the stranger was convincing them to do, either take pictures of themselves or go out and meet them in a park somewhere and then get abducted, and a lot of these kinds of really, really bad endings here. So chat rooms in general we want to stay away from, but there are some, if they're for whatever reason they have to be in there somewhere, then there's some rules we can apply here. So chat room behavior, just in general, remain anonymous. You don't want to have a screen name that's your actual name. You don't want to reveal your actual name on a chat room. So that's the second one there. You want to give, this obviously, if there's a chat room that's even remotely talking about anything, then you probably want to stay clear of it. Have your kids stay clear of it. There might be some kind of academic chat room that your child just has to be in for a class or something, but make sure to communicate with them that if anything starts going down the tubes, they need to log out and get out of there immediately. and then encourage kids to set up, private chats with people they have met in person, friends, teachers, whatever it is. Just to discourage children from using chat services with strangers. In period, there's certainly instances where you can set up chat services with just maybe your family, maybe you have a cousin or a friend that lives down the street from you. You see in person regularly. Those are the kind of things that if you have to use chat, that's probably some ways you can keep it under control there. All right, so now we're going to talk about a big threat here, social media. You all know that you all use social media probably. If you don't, well, good on you. But I know there's a lot of good that comes out of social media too, not only from finding out good information, but keeping up with friends and even witnessing through social media. So it's definitely a good opportunity. We just have to be real careful, and we have to, with our kids in particular, we got to be pretty prejudiced about social media. Okay. So here's some stats. Average worldwide social media users, 2 hours and 27 minutes per day. That's kind of mind-boggling to me. So that sounds pretty high. That means there's probably some folks that are a lot lower than that, but there's probably some folks that are way higher than that as well. So social media apps, here's the thing I was talking about before about zero trust. They're designed to keep you online as long as possible. The longer you stay on that app, the more potential money that company can make off of you through ads, through search trends, through what have you. And they use quite nefarious ways to keep you online too. We're all probably familiar with Facebook. They use tactics like the likes. Let me see what how many likes I got on my post today. That kind of thing. They keep you online by keeping your feeds random, so you have a hard time tracking what you saw and haven't seen yet. They just I'm going to keep scrolling to see make sure I get all my updates today. They also, obviously pop you up with the suggested contacts like, oh, we know you're friends with this person and this person's friends with that person. Let me suggest that you friend them too, and they kind of they try to keep you on with that kind of stuff. And this is all vulnerable. Our kids are vulnerable to this stuff too. And so, you really have to be careful with the social media. I would say, a good starting point is no social media. Obviously, that's probably not super realistic, but there's an interesting documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma. It's if you're interested in hearing all this, what happens in the back end of social media. Definitely a good documentary to see. It does have some interviews with some of the folks that the founder of MySpace and Twitter, and they interview some of these guys that came up with some of this stuff and how it started out pretty good motivations, but it's gone down the tubes, and it's pretty bad nowadays if you see what the motivations behind all this stuff is. And so too with social media, a lot of times they do say, well, the apps are age, they have age ratings, and you can't download them unless you're 18 or 21 or whatever. But obviously, as we've seen, parents and even grandparents or other friends can enable these apps, or kids lie about their age all the time, that kind of thing. So that's not really a barrier to these social media. All right, let's go through quickly some of the types of social media. You see one of these apps on your child's devices, you need to take it with extreme prejudice. There's some real junk out there. So first, again, zero trust, and you should definitely apply zero trust with social media. Texting and chat apps, the top ones there. Let me see. We've got from left to right there. We've got GroupMe is one. That one's where it's like a set up for teens to always be connected, so you can always text somebody and they're supposed to always get it, I guess, apparently. Kick Messenger is the next one from the left there. Easy to communicate with strangers and a lot of nefarious marketing on that app there. WhatsApp, that one's actually not bad, but the problem there is it allows secure and private group texting. So if you're not in the group chat, no one else has, you have no ability to monitor that particular app. Discord is the one on the top right. It's popular with gamers. There's a lot of game streaming on there. But the searches are not, or the chats are not moderated in any way, and so there's all kinds of stuff that can be posted on there, and then it contains a lot of kind of toxic communities and communication. You have a lot of the very competitive games, and people obviously get use foul language and all that kind of stuff on there. The next line is image and video chat type apps. These ones are hotbed for inappropriate content, pornography, all kinds of crazy videos and things. The one in the middle there, Instagram, you probably know it. That one's it's fairly popular, and they have at least some controls on there, but it's, again, you can search for just about anything and find it pretty darn quickly. So you want to be careful about that. TikTok, that you all probably know about that one. Very inappropriate speech, sexual content, encourages just a shallow and poor idea of people. I mean, people are just doing stupid things on there. Obviously, I don't have to tell you all about that, but it's just not a good quality use of time online. It's just there's not a whole lot of value there. And then the last one, Tumblr, it's public by default, so strangers can talk to strangers, and it's very easy to find sexual content on there too. So, like as I say, a lot of these apps just don't have any controls or buffers. It's just you get on the app and bam, you're already getting hit with all these threats. The bottom row are probably the worst, unfortunately. These are what I call self-destruct apps. They're marketed as apps that you either take a picture or you post something and then it's supposed to be gone. It just disappears, or it gets destroyed, self-destructs, and so you're supposed to never see it again. But as we know, that's totally false. These apps anyone that can take a picture of, you send a post or a picture to someone, they think it's temporary, but nope, they just click two buttons at the same time, take a screen capture, and then they have it permanently. And they can go post it somewhere that is permanent, right? And so there's that principle of what stays online is permanent. So these are, definitely want to stay away from those. If you see these apps on, obviously if you take the advice about controlling your children's apps, then you decide what they download and what apps they download. You definitely want to stay away from these here. Let's see. So I went through them. I can let's see. So we have, I don't know. I don't have it on the handout in the back, but I can get you a list. I can run through them real quick here too. So there's GroupMe. Let's go from top. Oh, the bottom. I'm sorry. Yes. So live.me is the one on the far left. It's easy to find inappropriate content, bullying and manipulation. Whisper is the one in the middle. That one's like this confessional kind of app where kids get on there and like confess their sins or their bad deeds or whatever they did, and it's extremely dark and inappropriate content. And then Snapchat is the bottom right, and that one it's a time-limited pictures and chats, but obviously it's false sense of security there. A lot of sexual content on there as well. So yeah. All right. Okay, so here's some ideas. How do we take care of some of this stuff here? You should be approving what your child downloads on their devices. Make sure that you're understanding what they're downloading before you approve it for them. Ensure the children have private profile settings turned on. So a lot of the apps will have these private settings where will block any kind of stranger. You can't find your child's account online by just searching, and people can't just randomly text you either. So you want to make sure you turn those on when they're available. And then for the social media stuff that your kids, if you do allow them to be on something, I suggest you have an account on there yourself, and you become friends with them. And in that way, you see exactly what they're posting. You're at least they know that you're watching, and you know that they're watching too. So what they're watching too. So. And then, just, again, communication is key here. Make sure that they know to only friend people that they know in person. In fact, it's even better if it's only people that they see regularly, at school or, here at church or whatnot. So that, just keeps them from, this stranger situation here too. So, all right. And again, some other ideas for social media. You could, if it gets to a point where you need to really have a sit down, you could even maybe have a kind of social media contract maybe you set up. That might be an idea. I don't know. Something that you say, okay, if you do this, you will lose this, or when I use this, I will do this, that kind of thing. Hopefully you can set up. stop and think before you post. Obviously, your kids, if the tendency online is just to say anything that comes to mind and be stupid about it. Make sure that you only communicate the way you would communicate to a person in real life to their face, right? Not in a bad or dishonest way. And then social media should not be a popularity contest. Another idea there. Just you're not on there to stroke your own ego or see how cool and popular you can be. You're on there to maybe help your friends or get access to good information to help either with school or with some other endeavor. All right, so let's change from social media here. Just going to touch on pictures. Pictures reveal a lot. Our iPhones usually have geotagging enabled by default, which means that when you take a picture, your GPS on your phone logs the location where that picture was taken. And so when you post this picture then to Facebook or other sharing websites, people can see where you are maybe, or what you're doing, or where you might be, or where you aren't or not. Like, i.e., you're not at your house right now, right? And so this is a goofy picture of this member of the Army who posted a picture of himself on Facebook, and he was actually in the fight in Iraq, and so he actually revealed some radio call signs on his whiteboard back there unknowingly, so that the enemy could potentially use those call signs on the radio. So obviously this is like a military example, but the same thing applies when you're on vacation, right? Maybe you're out, on a cruise or something. You're posting pictures, and all of a sudden, so and so's not home right now. Maybe we could figure out what's going on over there. Or the same thing goes with your children. They don't want me posting pictures online that reveal that they're at school, or they're getting ready to walk home, to get home after school, or waiting for the bus or whatnot. You want to basically turn geotagging off from your phones so that it doesn't work. However, you don't want to turn all location services off on the phone, because maybe there are some legitimate apps you want to use to track their location. So maybe a monitoring app or something that you're using. All right. Okay, this is a heavy topic here, sexting. This is prevalent in our community today. Kids just do it because they're asked to do it, and they're like, yeah, why not? And so obviously I think we're probably in a little better community here at Hope Bible Church, but it's still something that you need to be at least aware of. So sexting is defined as basically sending a sexually explicit picture to someone of any content. There's obviously there's a lot of ways to do this. We just talked about social media and the cameras and all that, and having control of the devices is one way to be able to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen, or that your children are not doing it themselves. But the key takeaway here is what goes online stays online forever. Just a rule to touch base, if you want to go this route with your kids and talk about consequences, Maryland law does not have specific sexting regulations or laws, but they do have child pornography laws apply here instead. And so when a child takes a picture of themselves and sends it, they could be charged for generating child pornography. And if it is sent to a minor, they could be charged with basically it's a misdemeanor, sending or showing obscene images to a minor. And then if you are in possession or retain such images, that's another charge. And all these charges in the Maryland law, the child pornography production or distribution is 10 years in jail. First offense, $25,000 fine. Second offense, 20 years, $50,000 fine. And a lot of the precedent nowadays is to have children treated as adults, minors treated as adults in the cases too. So I'm not a lawyer. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but you can go online and kind of find details if you're interested about the consequences there. That might be, I don't know. It's probably, don't start out with that, but that might be something that you that you go to if you need to. So just be aware of that. All right, cyberbullying is a thing. I think I'm going to kind of speed through this as we're kind of running out a little bit out of time, but the bottom line here is that kids need to be aware that they need to, as you have a relationship with your children, they need to be able to talk to you about what goes on online. If they're feeling bad about something or somebody's not behaving properly online, they can come to you. There's actually the police department has websites you can go to report cyberbullying. So they kind of have some resources there to check out. And then obviously it goes both ways too, right? You want to communicate with your kids what's appropriate and how to speak. You don't want to speak to someone online that you wouldn't say, in person. So let's see here. There's some warning signs to just watch out for. Child is suddenly angry, depressed, frustrated about when they're using their devices. Maybe stops using the device altogether all of a sudden at once. Maybe anxious or worried about going to school. That might be a sign. And then, or maybe stops using their normal apps that they use as well. So just something to be aware of there. All right, gaming. This is a big one. All right, so when we were growing up, obviously games were immature. They were basic. They only really, were motivated to hold your attention for like, an hour, and then you were done with it. Nowadays, games like social media are designed to keep you on the game as long as possible. You got these open-ended games like Minecraft and, well, shoot, you name it. There's about any game nowadays. Additionally, you got the threats there of the graphics, the photorealistic graphics, the violence. You name it, there's games out there that show all that kind of stuff. And then you got the online multiplayer threats too, like World of Warcraft and those kinds of things that keep the kids online as long as possible, and they, of course, have chat and interacting with strangers. So there's a rating system you can use to understand what the games are. You want to use that to your advantage here. You want to communicate with your children, why or are you interested in this game? What do you do in the game? And, is this a good use of your time? These kinds of things. Not only just with the violence and the sexual content, but with just the idea of these open-ended games that never end. You just stay on them and keep playing them and keep playing them, and they use achievements and that kind of stuff to keep you there. So the rating system here at the top, you want to stay within the E, that's everyone, or E plus 10, 10 years and up. Teen, you want to check into. There's still blood and gore and violence in some of the teen-rated games. And then when you get to M and adults only, no, you don't even want to allow the kid to even be thinking about those kind of games. I mean, there's everything that you can imagine under the sun that go on in those games, and so there's no reason you want to even have that in your household, whether it's an adult or a kid playing it. I don't even know. I'm surprised they even allow a lot of these games around. So just be aware of that on the rating system. All right, we're going to wrap it up here real quick with some device threats. Hacking is a big thing nowadays. It's what I do. I deal with this all the time in my job, and it's very prevalent out there. The hackers have found ways to monetize their hacking, and so they go after it like it's no tomorrow. So 75% of black hat hackers said traditional firewalls and antivirus security is irrelevant and obsolete. They can get right through that in 30 seconds if they really want to. So I do actually kind of stay away from the antivirus stuff. I mean, you'd think, wow, you don't scan your computer for antivirus? Like, if you keep other safeguards in place, you're not visiting sites that are nefarious. A lot of times the antivirus software itself is almost like malware. It runs your computer processor. There's even, who was it? Not McAfee, but the other one, the other big one, was just charged of Bitcoin mining. They use their customers' computers to mine Bitcoin. So it's like, oh, really? Anyway, so yeah, it was Kaspersky, I think maybe. Yeah, yep. And so it's a problem. So real quick here, wireless threats. Don't join or don't have your children join public Wi-Fi because it's open. People can hear it or can get on there and see it and compromise your device that way. Don't join random Bluetooth connections. When you're in the airport, don't connect to charging stations. Those things, just by virtue of plugging your computer into a charger, it can be compromised. So use your own charges, use your own cables, use your own power bricks, and have your kids do the same. Turn access location services off as much as you can with the apps. Why would a social media app want to know your location? Obviously you want to turn that off. So these ideas are on the back. I kind of skimmed through this a little bit. Real quick before I think I'll just end with this topic here, email and downloads. Here's where zero trust applies. With email, you want to sit down with your children if they have an email account and go through this with them. Make them known of emails to have that kind of zero trust mindset. Any links in emails nowadays are almost always a problem. Obviously you could have a friend that you know, their Facebook account might have been compromised, and all of a sudden you're getting this email from them that says, "Hey, this is pretty cool. Check out this link," and then all of a sudden you click on it, and bam, there's malware. So it's really easy, and that's malware, and we call this phishing, when a hacker sends an email to you to try to get you to click on a link. That's 85 to 90% of the successful hacking that goes on is done through email phishing. So you want to stay away from that. I know if you work at an office or a company, they might actually test you with these kind of things to get you to see if you can click on stuff. Hey, print out this file for me, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, downloads. Only download files, apps from trusted stores. When you're on an iOS device, you want to stay on the App Store, or the Apple Store, and then on Google Play Store. And even then, you got to be a little careful to read the reviews, make sure the apps are actually doing what they're saying they're doing. All right, and then you can back up your data. That's always a good way to, if you do have to reset a phone or you lose a device, you can do that. You have the USB drives now are very easy to just plug into your computer, download your important documents folder, and then unplug it, and then you're good to go. You don't have to try to back up your entire computer. It's kind of a waste. Just if something happens, you can reinstall the operating system and all that. All right, so that's the end of it. As I said, anything posted online is forever. Communicate with your children. That's the number one thing you can do. Remember zero trust, and use access controls first as your main line of defense for your devices. So there's a website here. It's good. I am CyberSafeorg, and holy cow, I'm just plugging Instagram here too. So I would probably stay off of that, but no. I am CyberSafe.org. That's a good one to go and find kind of updated information that kind of just and additional ideas to find as well. So that's it. I appreciate you coming out tonight. I know in the youth group here, as I know Jason is our lead there. We want to continue to provide forums for parents to help with your children, and as we certainly enjoy hanging out with them every Friday night and on Sundays as well. And we appreciate that you are trusting your kids with us, and so we wanted to kind of do this night for you to be able to help you as much as we can. So appreciate it. So with that, we can do some questions maybe for a little bit. We're right at 9:30, so if you have to go, you got to go, but we can stay around for questions.
Just if you can recap what the kids are actually learning right now, and how we could discuss this right after the session, for example.
Okay. Yeah, Jason.
Oh, I can actually say. So what we looked at, and so I'm breaking it up into two sort of things. We sort of look at the problem, and realistically, what I did is I discussed with them as far as social media and the main sort of websites like Google, Facebook, and just pretty much the internet in general. Pretty much just how they view the kids and how they view just consumers. And essentially all they are is a data mining factory for them, a revenue service, and ultimately they have to understand too that, especially with a lot of stuff that goes on with Facebook, and I know that some of it's been touched that we see within the news networks and all that, but the way that social media in general is going with their algorithm, it's very negative, and how essentially it's programmed to be negative, because ultimately negativity is what gets the clicks, what gets the things, and what gets them there. We started off by talking about, I had Tristan Harris, I don't know if you've heard of him before, but the social dilemma.
Oh yeah, we mentioned it.
Yeah, social dilemma. He's a guy who pretty much was an architect of that movie and that, but he's got a lot of stuff goes out. He was he was a Google, what can you say, engagement architect, essentially. So his literal job was to figure out ways to morally keep people on Google as much as possible. And essentially what had happened is, as he was doing his job, he realized there's really no good moral way of doing what we're doing. So he sort of became a whistleblower type person, and then just sort of left Google. But now he's on the, circuits about talking about pretty much just those kind of things. So that's what we started. We started off by looking at a TED Talk that he did in 2017, pretty much explaining about how, we think that these sites are innocent, but what you don't realize is that there are hundreds of people in the background who are literally engineering these sites to essentially manipulate and control. And just to have these kids understand that they are, ultimately seen as just pawns in, pretty much a grab for money and power. So.
What's his name?
Tristan Harris, and that's Tristan and Harris.
Anything else? All right. Well, thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.